Revealed, 3 sinister and spine-chilling camping horror stories that expose the haunted unknown. The sun hung low, casting long shadows as Luke steered the family SUV deeper into Pine Hollow Forest. A weekend escape, a chance to reconnect and leave behind the chaos of city life. But as the vehicle whined on the gravel road, the air felt thick, that familiar dread creeping in, turning excitement to tension. Mia fiddled with her stuffed unicorn, while Jake scrolled through messages on his phone, their anticipation tangled with worry. Once they reached their campsite, Luke set to work erecting the tent while Sarah unpacked provisions. The serene lake shimmered under the setting sun, an illusion of calm that belied the forest's looming presence. The air was prickly, whispers seemed wrapped in the wind, and as they ventured further in, a series of ominous carvings caught Luke's eye. Symbols, crudely etched into the bark of towering pines, pulsed like unsteady hearts, sending a shiver down his spine. Just art, he muttered, but could feel Sarah's uncertainty simmering nearby. Later, as twilight descended, the family gathered around their crackling campfire. They roasted marshmallows, laughter hanging in the air like fragile glass. But the moment was fleeting. The darkness closed in, unsettling sounds intertwined with their conversations, twigs snapping, rustles echoing, as if the trees conspired against them. "It's just nature," Luke insisted, trying to shroud their gathering dread. But deep down, uncertainty gnawed, and leftover fears about urban life leaked into this supposed haven. Just then, a chill gust whispered past them, stealing away their laughter. "Did you hear that?" Sarah's voice quivered. "It's fine," Luke reassured, though his heart raced. The night pressed heavy around them, and as shadows twisted, Jake clenched his jaw, wanting to scream that he was tired of feeling trapped under his father's protective thumb. Mia, wide-eyed, felt the weight of their tensions, and her voice wavered as she asked, "Are we safe here, Dad?" A sudden snap of a branch sent them reeling. Luke's bravado cracked under the pressure, his facade breaking as panic settled into the pit of his stomach. They decided to call it a night, but when the campfire flickered out woefully dimmed, the world turned into an abyss of terror. "We're lost," Jake whispered, dread lacing his words. The air was thick, every sound morphing under the heavy blanket of darkness. "Stop!" Luke commanded suddenly, his voice slicing through the quiet. His instincts prickled, something wasn't right. Shadows morphed into grotesque shapes, and the family found themselves engulfed by the forest's monstrous embrace. Anxiety twisted tight in Sarah's stomach as the paranoia of their neighbors' fervor returned. Had they pushed them to this nightmare? In the darkness, a low growl rumbled, causing them to freeze. Something was watching. It wasn't just myths that lurked in the underbrush, it was the fractured trust, the fear. Hands trembling, Luke led them deeper into the suffocating night. Afraid to turn back, they stumbled onward, the descendants of their comfort laying shambles behind them. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Suddenly, Jake felt something beneath his foot, cold earth shifting. He stumbled, and as he kicked aside some leaves, the remnants of an old campsite emerged, revealing a journal that bore frantic scratches. "The one who watches," he read, his voice a whisper laced with fear. The air grew heavier, the sounds around them shifting into a low growl, thundering around the trees. And the shadows caved in closer. What had they awakened in Pine Hollow? Something was hunting them, but not just the folklore. No, it was something far more intimate that threatened to unravel them completely. Luke's grip tightened around Jake's shoulder as they huddled close together, the flickering shadows of the forest twisting grotesquely in the darkness. The journal lay forgotten between them, the words echoing ominously in their minds. The low growl surged, louder now, shaking leaves and rattling their nerves as instinct smothered any thoughts of rationality. "Get up! We have to move!" Luke hissed, urgency fueling his voice. The tension hung thick as they stumbled backward, fear clawing at their throats, desperate to swallow them whole. Mia's little hand clutched at Jake, her eyes wide, reflecting the fear that churned in their chests. "Where do we even go?" Jake's voice trembled, heart racing. The only thing behind them was the black void that devoured their campsite, their sanctuary now a wicked realm that turned their thoughts to misery. Muffled footsteps echoed through the branches, ominous thuds resembling a heartbeat. Luke led them deeper into the forest, branches grasped at their clothes. Whatever had been following them was close, too close. "Mom, what about the tent?" Mia stuttered, glancing back, her gaze caught between what was ahead and the horrors lurking behind. Sarah's face was ashen, but resolve built behind her trembling lips. "We can't go back. We'll just have to keep moving." The words were heavy, thick as the air surrounding them, but they ignited a flicker of hope. They pressed forward into the suffocating darkness, heads turning with every sound. The growls grew quieter but hung in the air, persistent, a predator stalking its prey. They avoided eye contact, fearing that connecting would shatter their fragile sanity. "Maybe we can find a path," Luke whispered, straining to see through the obsidian veil of the night. They veered off into a direction that felt less claustrophobic, a momentary illusion of safety ignited by the uncertainty of where they traveled. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath their feet again, an unnatural softness, like sinking into the very stomach of the earth itself. "What is this place?" Jake's words curdled in his throat as they faltered, almost as though whatever power lay there awaited their demise. They halted, breathless, peering through the thicket. Then they spotted it, a clearing lit by a wholly unnatural glow, not from any stars above, but emanating from stones crudely arranged in a circle. There, at the center, lay figures old, worn like the pages of the journal Jake found only moments ago. Life-size dolls fashioned from branches and rags, each pinned to the ground with skewered cords, their hollow eyes staring into infinity. "What the hell is this?" Luke muttered. An icy dread pooled in his stomach as realization struck, the symbols from the trees they had led them here. "We should really leave," the words cracked under the weight of their shared trepidation. And then, with a sudden burst of movement, the dolls began to sway, their bodies creaking like ancient wood. A chorus of whispers fled the mouths of the figures. Disjointed, disturbed sounds crawled under the skin of the night, swirling with malevolence. "Look!" Mia clutched Jake's arm, her voice barely a whisper. The flickering glow illuminated something just beyond the circle, dark figures shifting in the shadows, hidden but undeniably present. Panic surged anew as the reality dawned on them, they weren't alone. Something lurked here, drawn by their intrusion, waiting to claim them as it had turned so many others to dust. "Run!" Luke shouted, inciting movement. They fled, hearts slamming against their ribs, racing back into the depths of Pine Hollow. But deep within the trees, a chilling laughter echoed, a sound that promised to haunt them far beyond the night. Would they escape the chilling grip of the haunted night? Or would Pine Hollow claim them like so many before? The forest watched, waiting for the families that wandered too close to its heart. Branches lashed out like skeletal fingers, scraping against their arms and clothes as they tore through the forest. Each step echoed with the pulse of their terror, heartbeats melding into the fear-laced atmosphere. Jake was ahead, pushing them forward, the growls fading but an ominous weight pressing down on them. "Stay close!" Luke shouted, his voice cracking as dread coursed through him like ice, the shadowed figures still plaguing his memory. The urgency in his breath sliced through the darkness. "We have to find a way out." Mia's terrified whimper was the only reply. She squeezed Jake's hand tightly, a trembling anchor amidst the chaos of their flight. Each hurried stride felt like stumbling through a nightmare where every rustling leaf hinted at pursuers lurking in the gloom. "Keep moving. We can't stop." Sarah's voice emerged, taut and commanding, defying the panic that threatened to swallow them whole. They tore deeper into the forest, an unforgiving labyrinth of trees. A sudden snap echoed nearby. The sharp sound punctuated their desperate escape. It felt like the forest itself was waking, branches creaking, leaves whispering secrets too grim to fathom. "Did you hear that?" Mia's voice trembled beneath the weight of dread. "Don't look back. Just run." Luke barked, adrenaline pushing him forward despite the gnawing fear pulling him back. The ground underfoot morphed again, roots writhing like serpents, but they pressed on, each moment dragging them deeper into Pine Hollow's malevolence. Jake felt a disruption in the air. An inescapable feeling that whatever had been following them wasn't merely a figment of their shared anxiety. When a guttural growl reverberated through the trees, the very heart of the forest quaked with it. "It's getting closer," he gasped, the weight of panic crashing around them. "Over there." Sarah pointed toward a dim light flickering in the distance. Their last hope shimmered like a mirage. Without a second thought, they sprinted toward it, each breath heavier, thoughts fading against the primal instinct to survive. As they neared the source, the light dimmed and a bone-chilling chill swept over them. It was from an old arched entrance formed by twisted roots, shrouded in creeping fog. "What is that?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Some kind of entrance? A way out?" Jake suggested, his mind racing. But doubt coated his words. What kind of escape lay in a place that felt so sinister? With little choice, they slipped through the jagged opening. Immediately, they were engulfed in a different realm, an underground cave, glistening stones reflecting their shaky silhouettes. A feeling of wrongness enveloped them, a sense that they had crossed a barrier they shouldn't have touched. The air was thick and damp, the walls throbbing with a low hum, a heartbeat. "We shouldn't be here," Luke said, backing against the wall, but the others pressed past him, drawn deeper by the haunting luminescence ahead. A sound broke the silence, breaking over them like a wave. The whispers from outside, now echoing in the cavern, morphed into chilling laughter that danced around them. It stretched, elongated, weaving through the cold stone, taunting them. "We need to go now," Sarah screamed. But it was already too late. The entrance behind them collapsed into darkness, sealing them in. Panic set in, their isolation heightened. No way back, no visible path forward. They were encased within the bowels of Pine Hollow, where the forest's grasp was stronger than ever. "Help!" Mia cried, panic rising, but her voice was swallowed by the laughter that flared around them. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony that crescendoed, wrapping around them like a noose. Just then, two bright, piercing eyes glowed from the darkness ahead. Shadows twisted, starting to shape a figure that was looming closer, its presence both inviting and threatening. What awaited them in this dark enclave? Would the true horror of Pine Hollow be revealed? The figure drew nearer, the glow of its eyes slicing through the murky gloom like a knife. Jake's heart hammered against his ribcage, matching the deafening thrum of whispered fears. "What is that?" Mia whimpered, clutching Jake's arm, her knuckles stark white against the darkness. "Stay back!" Luke shouted, throwing his arms in front of the group, a futile shield against the impending terror. But even his voice trembled, as the form gradually emerged from the shadows. It was tall and gaunt, limbs elongated and impossibly thin. A ragged cloak hung from its skeletal frame, the fabric whispering secrets as it brushed against the cave walls. "Look at its face," Sarah breathed, eyes wide and fear-stricken. The figure's visage emerged into the dim light, sunken eyes hollow and penetrating. The mouth twisted into a grin, bearing teeth that looked more like ancient rocks rather than something freshly alive. The air thickened, the room swirling with a stench like rot. "Turn back. Please." Luke's voice cracked, but the entity barely acknowledged them, its focus locked onto Jake, drawing closer, slow, deliberate steps echoing in the damp chamber. Each footfall sent flashes of horror coursing through Jake's mind, memories of the forest's growls returning, mocking his desperation. Move! Jake shouted, pushing Mia toward a narrow passage that branched off from the main cave. The others didn't hesitate, fear urged them forward, hearts racing. But just as they turned to flee, the whispers erupted into loud laughter, mocking their desperate retreat. The figure lingered back, intrigued. "Where are you going?" it hissed, its voice gravelly like stones grinding against each other. "You came here for a reason." Leaving the light of the chamber, they stumbled through the passage, the walls pressing in closer, ominous shapes twisting like serpents. They could barely see ahead, hands brushing against the cold stone, every breath labored. What was that thing? Mia gasped out, shivers coursing down her spine. "I don't know, but it's following us," Jake panted, glancing back. The glow of the figure was gone, but the air felt heavy, vibrating with its presence. They rushed forward, adrenaline pushing them to explore deeper into the unknown. The pathway led them to a vast chamber, illuminated by a ghostly pale light flowing from the walls. Unfamiliar symbols carved into the stone pulsed rhythmically, almost as if the cave itself was alive. Jake stepped closer, his curiosity battling with alarm. "What are those?" he wondered aloud, tracing his fingers over the markings. They felt warm, alive beneath his touch. Before anyone could respond, the ground trembled violently, sending vibrations sharp enough to jolt them upright. "Get back!" Sarah shouted, but the walls shuddered, a low rumble echoing through the cavern. A fractured rock slab broke loose, sending debris tumbling. "No! We need to get out!" Luke yelled, adrenaline igniting the urgency once more. They turned to flee, but the passage they had entered was already collapsing, cutting off the exit. Shadows twisted in the periphery, shapes whispering as if keenly aware of their entrapment. The sinister laughter returned, echoing off the cave's walls, seizing each member with an icy fist. "You shouldn't have come here," taunted a voice, the disembodied sound wrapping around them, seeping into their minds. "Run!" Jake screamed, desperation pushing them towards an immense archway at the far end of the chamber, a shadowy outline barely visible. But what lay beyond? Was it hope? Or another trap? As they neared the archway, the symbols on the walls flickered, casting grotesque shadows that danced ominously around them. The sensation of eyes upon them erupted, prickling skin. Whatever haunted this place hungered for their fear. "We're almost there. Just a little further," Sarah urged, but even she could feel every heartbeat coiling tighter with the uncertainty. Suddenly, the ground shook again, and the laughter intensified, drowning their escape. Jake stumbled, falling to his knees, echoing a primitive fear. "We're not going to make it," he gasped, looking back at an impossibly dark void creeping forth. With a final burst of clarity, he lunged for the archway, dragging Mia with him as the others followed, breath hitching in their throats. But would crossing through grant them salvation, or plunge them deeper into the heart of Pine Hollow's nightmare? As they stumbled into the unknown, the laughter faded momentarily, replaced by a different sound, a deep, resonant silence that felt like the calm before a storm. What awaited them across that threshold? Would they confront the true monster lurking in the shadows? The trap had been set, and they were just stepping into its clutches. The air thickened around them as they crossed the threshold. It felt like stepping into a different realm, one where reality warped and twisted. The archway closed behind them with a soft, chilling hiss, sealing off any chance of retreat. An unsettling quiet fell, smothering their frantic breaths. "What is this place?" Mia whispered, eyes wide, trying to pierce the gloom that enveloped them. Jake shivered, scanning the dim surroundings. The walls glistened, slick with something unidentifiable, as vague shapes flickered in the peripheral dark, a haunting tableau coming alive. "I don't know." "Stay close." Before he could finish, the silence shattered like glass. A low growl rumbled beneath the surface, vibrating through the floor beneath them. The sound resonated deep, primal, a warning that made their skin crawl. "Not again," Luke muttered, terror creeping into his voice. From the shadows, indistinct forms began to emerge, shifting like smoke. Ghostly silhouettes danced before them, bodies twisting in agony, echoing unvoiced screams. They were trapped. This was no ordinary cave. Are those people? Sarah gasped, retreating a step. Her hand flew to her mouth to stifle a scream as one silhouette distinctly formed. It was a man, face contorted in fear, eyes wide and horrified. "Get back!" Jake instinctively shouted, pulling Mia behind him, though his heart raced, caught between protective instincts and sheer terror. The phantom raised a hand, a shrieking echo piercing the air as its form flickered, vapor-like. "Help us!" it cried, voice distorted. "They'll come for you too." "What? Who?" Jake felt a cold sweat on his brow, panic tightening its grip. Mia stepped forward, defiance etched on her features. "What can we do?" The figure's gaze sharpened, a desperate plea twisting its face. "The symbols. They're your only chance." In an instant, the shadows surged forward, enveloping them in a cold rush. Jake gasped, stumbling backward as the figures roared, fangs glinting in the faint glow. "Run!" he yelled, adrenaline spiking. Fleeing deeper into the chamber, they dodged the figures closing in, the air shimmering with their malevolence. "Those symbols," he recalled, glancing back to the walls growing denser with unnatural energy. They had to be the key, the connection to this horror. The path narrowed and turned, urging them toward the trembling symbols pulsating in chaotic rhythm. Jake skidded to a halt, frantically deciphering the carvings. "What do we do?" Mia joined him, pointing at the patterns as they surrounded the group. "Maybe if we touch them in order?" The shadows danced closer, laughter trailing through the air, a hollow echo of despair. The figures, now a coalition of anger, surged at them, eyes flaring with malice. "Now or never!" Luke shouted, racing toward the nearest symbol. They all joined him, fingers trembling against the warm stone. Their touch sent a shockwave through the chamber. The air thickened, vibrating as the symbols flared with light, a blinding glow that forced the shadows to recoil. A deep rumble erupted from the heart of the cave, reverberating through every bone. "What is happening? What is this place really?" Suddenly, the cave began to shift, twisting like a living thing. "Hold on!" Jake yelled, instinctually grabbing Mia's hand. The ground buckled, and just as they stabilized, the shadows lunged forward with unfathomable speed. "Go!" Sarah screamed, the panic glaring in her eyes as the darkness reached for them, closing the gap. The symbols erupted with searing light, illuminating the cavern for a brief moment before the world collapsed into chaos. "Jake!" Mia's voice broke through the static of fear. "What if we can't escape?" Just as the shadows clutched at the edges of their being, the symbols flared brighter, casting the dim stone walls in shades of vibrant luminescence. The air buzzed and crackled, a blast of energy washing over them. Did they find a way out? In that moment, something rippled through the darkness. A shadow larger than the rest loomed, eyes glinting like knives, no longer just figures of pain, but the true embodiment of despair. And it was hungry. Heart pounding, Jake knew they would soon find out the true horror within the cave's depths. Would they face the darkness together? Or succumb to the shadows that waited to feast upon their fear? As the light began to fissure under pressure, Jake gripped Mia tighter, the impending choice weighing heavy on their shoulders. Would they stand and fight, or would the cave claim them one by one? The air crackled around them as if it held 1,000 whispers, taunting and insidious. The shadows shrank for a moment, drawn back by the pulsing light of the symbols, but Jake could feel their presence gathering, relentless and hungry. The ground beneath them shuddered as if the cave itself was alive, aware of their fear. "What's happening?" Luke yelled, panic slicing through his voice as he stumbled backward, nearly toppling into the churning dark. "Just keep touching the symbols," Jake shouted, his own voice strained with uncertainty. We have to hold on. Mia's fingers flitted over the glowing carvings, their warmth radiating through her skin, grounding her amid the chaos. But as they pressed against the cool stone, the tremors intensified, spilling echoes of laughter that twisted into disturbing wails, voices filled with agony and longing. And then, a deep growl pierced through the cacophony, resonating like a death knell. The shadows, emboldened by their confusion, surged forward again, their hollow eyes glimmering with an insatiable thirst. "Don't let go!" Mia cried, her grip tightening around Jake as they inched closer to the center of the symbols. They could feel the energy vibrating through the air, and with it, the tangible weight of dread. What did that ghost mean by the symbols? Could they really be their salvation? Jake's heart raced, each erratic pulse constricting his thoughts. The weight of despair was palpable, and he couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. Something wicked lurked, sensing their fear. "Look!" Sarah screamed, pointing at a swirling cloud of darkness gathering ominously just beyond the illuminated symbols. A formless mass, it twisted and coiled, the remnants of anguished faces buried within. "Move! Move!" Luke shouted now, scrambling toward a different symbol. "We have to find the right sequence. We can't keep doing this." A tremor rattled through the ground like thunder as the shadows pressed closer, a wave of despair threatening to drown them. Each pulse of the symbols brought painful clarity to their surroundings, revealing the true horror of their fate. The shadows were not just veils of darkness but reflections of memories, tormented souls trapped for eternity. "Help us!" The cries echoed, a siren call pulling at their sanity. The symbols shimmered as if they were alive, revealing brief flashes of what happened. Jake glimpsed fragmented visions. This place had claimed many before, each a tale woven into the fabric of the cave. "What do we do?" Mia gasped, breath hitching as the mass grew, almost solid. "What if it knows we're here?" With resolve forged in desperation, Jake stepped forward. "We have to channel our fear. If we don't, it will consume us." He reached out, fingers pressing against the largest symbol, trying to focus on the fraying edges of hope. As his skin connected with the stone, a pulse raced through him. A shock of energy surged, flooding him with clarity. The growling grew louder, shaking the very essence of their existence, but in that maelstrom of chaos, he could see the order among the confusion. The symbols weren't random, they were a language begging to be spoken, an incantation searching for its voice. Mia and Luke joined him, each touching a different symbol, their heartbeats syncing with the rhythms swirling around them. For a moment, the shadows recoiled, and the grotesque faces within the mass shrieked, twisting into grotesque expressions of rage. But just when they thought victory might be within reach, the deeper growl crested into an unearthly roar, a sound that split the cavern. The ground quaked violently beneath them, and the symbols flickered sporadically. "What the hell is that?" Luke shouted over the cacophony, eyes wide with terror. Jake focused harder, willing the symbols to fight back. "We can't stop. We have to keep going. If we look out." Sarah cried, but before any warning could take hold, shadows exploded through the fissures in the cave, reaching for them like greed-fueled serpents. They were no longer mere silhouettes, they were hungry spirits, seeking revenge. With a final desperate push, Jake envisioned their fear subverting into strength. He yelled, "We face this together." But even as he shouted, he felt the weight of darkness clawing at his mind, threatening to sweep him and his friends into an abyss of despair. Would they break free from this wretched curse? Or would the cave claim their souls, just as it had done with so many before? The shadows lunged, and in that moment of horror, they were left wondering, had they awakened something worse than before? Mia's scream twisted in her throat, caught between fear and instinct. The shadows lunged, their dark tendrils reaching for her, hungry, furious. Jake felt the ground beneath him pull and plunge like he was on a sinking ship. Panic clawed at his chest. He gripped the symbols tighter, willing them to hold against the encroaching night. "Don't let go. Don't." But his words faded as the shadows rushed in, their whispers multiplying, a sinister chorus of regret and fury. The mass of darkness pulsated, and a sickening chill swept over them like a winter wind. "Jake!" Sarah's voice was frantic as she pressed her hand against the symbol next to his. "It's changing." He glanced at the glowing carvings, now flickering as if battling a storm raging just within his mind. When he looked back, the shadows had formed a face, a terrible visage carved from their very essence. Empty eyes bored into his soul, dragging it toward despair. A wave of noise hit him, a cacophony of cries, sobs, whispers, a painful harmony of spirits yearning for release. "Help us," they moaned, their words clawing at his resolve. "Focus! Focus!" Jake shouted, pushing back against the weight threatening to crush him. He searched for the power lodged within the symbols, searching for that incantation that might save them. In the corner of his eye, he saw Luke trembling, sweat gleaming on his forehead as he groped for the symbols around him. "Why isn't anything happening?" Luke shouted. "We're just standing here." Mia's eyes darted. "Maybe we're not doing it right. Maybe the sequence." "Shut up. Just touch them." Jake snapped. They weren't thinking straight. He could feel it, the urgency of time slipping, the shadows breathing around them, waiting for a moment of weakness. Suddenly the space shifted. They were in the cave, but not entirely. Jake gasped as the symbols glowed brighter, brighter than he thought possible. Images flashed, jarring and chaotic. Snippets of past captives' faces twisted in agony, eyes wide. A little girl lost forever, her laugh echoing now as a ghostly whisper merging with the dark. The ground trembled again, violently. The cave itself seemed to roar, walls shuddering as if they were alive. Another deep growl threatened to engulf them, a sound that vibrated through their bones. "We have to, Jake. It's coming." Mia screamed. The shadows lunged again, a dark wave crashing toward them. He felt it, an insatiable hunger that promised endless night. Instinct ignited, and he pulled Mia closer. "Channel your fear into the symbols." With one synchronized breath, they closed their eyes and shouted together whatever pleas or prayers rose from the deepest corners of their souls. They pushed all their dread, their confusion, their fighting spirit into the symbols. Each word rang out louder, a declaration against the encroaching darkness. And then quiet. The agonizing wails and haunting laughter became hushed whispers, culminating in a vast silence. The shadows pulled back, retreating from the light. The air felt almost warm, inviting, but he knew better. This was a deception, a moment of false hope. Just when they thought the worst was over, the foremost shadow pulled itself into a solid form, a figure cloaked in darkness, its face obscured by a veil of gloom. "We've awakened it," Jake murmured, dread coiling tighter around his heart. The entity loomed, its gaze piercing through the shadows. "Fight it. We still have power." Mia shouted, but the darkness twisted, morphing into grotesque shapes as though mocking their pleas. With witches' tails in the wind, the figure opened its mouth, releasing a horrific sound that made the very ground tremble. Were they too late? Had they unleashed something far worse? "What do we do now?" Luke flushed with panic, as the shadows began to loom again, now swirling back to shape. But before Jake could respond, the figure took a step forward, a laugh echoing from the depths of night. It was a sound filled with malice and hunger, an invitation or a threat. Mia gasped, "Jake, it knows us." And in that chilling moment, they realized, their fight was only just beginning. What if the very shadows they sought to escape had been playing a game all along? The figure advanced, each step a resounding echo against the cavern walls. It was alive, pulsing with shadows, a dark heartbeat in reality's fabric. Jake's throat dried up. Panic clawed at the edges of his vision. "Don't look away," he shouted, but his voice trembled. They were already entranced, the creature's power seeping through the air, wrapping tight around their minds. What does it want? Luke whispered, eyes wide, darting between the looming shadow and his friends. His breaths were shallow, frantic. We have to fight it. We can't let it in. Jake barked. He glanced at the symbols, now flickering uncertainly, desperately clinging to their light. Focus on the symbols. Channel your fear. Mia stepped forward, her hand shaking as it approached the vibrant carvings. Jake, what if we can't? Jake's eyes hardened. We have to. Or we'll end up like those people in the visions. The agony of their faces flashed through his mind, drowning his determination for a split second. The figure paused, tilting its head as if it could hear their thoughts. The shadows writhed around it like serpents, hungry, eager. You don't even know what you face, it whispered, each word dripping with malice. You've played a part in my awakening. Each syllable slithered inside Jake's head, twisting his thoughts. He clenched his teeth. Get out! He roared, the words erupting as if tearing free from his very soul. Help us! Sarah cried, her voice breaking. She stepped closer to the symbols too, but doubt flickered in her eyes. The darkness thickened, creeping toward them with predatory intent. It enveloped Mia, pulling her down to her knees. No! Mia! Jake shouted as he lunged toward her, grasping her hand. But the shadows snaked around them, pulling tighter, feeding off their fear. We can't let it win. He screamed, digging deep for that flicker of power within him. Fight it. Remember who you are. The shadows shrieked, casting horrible illusions that clawed at their sanity. Faces twisted in pain materialized, friends and strangers merging with terror. Voices echoed, begging, wailing for salvation. Don't listen. Jake shouted, voice wavering. They're not real. Focus. Feel the symbols. Suddenly, a blinding light ignited from the symbols, erupting like a flare against the pressing darkness. The shadows writhed, screaming as if scorched. But the figure only laughed, a sound so piercing it fragmented their minds. Your light is feeble, you cannot banish me, I am indestructible. It taunted, advancing relentlessly. Jake felt a deep chill wash over him, chilling bone deep. He glanced at Mia, her eyes were wide with fear, haunted. We can do this. Trust each other. A bond knit between them, fragile but radiant. Moments passed, and they took a deep breath together, stepping further into the glow of the symbols. Together. Now. All four of them pressed their hands against the symbols, their heartbeats syncopating with a thunderous chorus of defiance. They could feel the weight of their shared fear morphing into something greater, a collective will bending into resistance. But the figure roared, darkness swirling around them in a maelstrom, pressing against their very essence. They were at the brink. We have to break its hold. Mia screamed, her voice fierce. Just as the ground began to tremble violently beneath them, the creature leaned in closer, its mocking smile split wide. This is just the beginning. You think you've awakened me? You've only opened the door. Jake's blood ran cold. What do you mean? He spat back, but he could already feel the weight of despair creeping back, whispering its dreadful secrets. Then, as if time stood still, an ominous crack split through the cave. From the depths, a dark figure emerged, pulling itself from the shadows behind the original creature. We Haven T finished this. Jake's heart raced. A gray mist began to seep from the crack, winding around their ankles, climbing their legs. Mia! Jake yelled as the shadows began to twist and curl, unveiling more figures from the endless void. They wore faces of lost souls, their eyes pleading for release. Jake, help! Sarah gasped, as the hold of darkness tightened, pulsing with a new strength. The shadows laughed, a chorus of hellish cackles that echoed through the cave, resonating like a death knell. You have no idea what you've unleashed, and in that instant, they realized the shadows weren't just hunting them, they were summoning more others who had come before. Jake's breath caught in his throat. What have we done? The shadows encircled closer, tightening their grasp, whispering promises of despair and secrets long buried. All while more and more eyes watched hungrily from the smothering darkness. As their light began to flicker, and the weight of hopelessness dragged them back, one thought surged through Jake's mind: what had they truly awakened? And before the darkness consumed them, a chilling echoed question hung in the air: what would rise next? The shadows pressed in closer, merging into a single oppressive entity, a writhing mass of souls lost to despair. Jake felt a cold sweat bead on his forehead, fear coiling tightly in his gut. We can't let them take us, he shouted, desperate. As the mist curled around their legs, panic ignited. He glanced at Mia. The light in her eyes dimmed, flickering like the failing glow escaping from the symbols. Come on, focus, Jake urged, trembling hands gripping hers. We're stronger together. But their resolve weakened with each passing moment, the voices of the lost rising in keening wails, seeking to drown them. Mia's voice trembled, filled with dread. What if we can't do it? What if we belong to them now? No, he snapped, feeling explosive energy surge through him. We fight. We push back. They braced their hands against the symbols again, forcing the connection, but the glow dimmed, shadows creeping in like poison. Luke's voice trembled, guys, what if we're the ones who opened this? The legends say they said it would never stay closed. Jake turned to him, a flash of anger cutting through his fear. So we just give up? We're not letting them win. But doubt crept in, gnawing at his thoughts. Had they truly played a part in this nightmare? Had their curiosity unearthed something too powerful to contain? A scream pierced the suffocating darkness, pulling Jake's attention back. Sarah stood frozen, eyes wildly scanning the ethereal faces forming from the shadows. They want us to join them. The faces floated closer, mouths stretching into unnatural grins, their eyes devoid of life. Be one of us, they whispered, a sickly promise. You long to be free, just surrender. No, Jake shouted, forcing his voice to rise over the cacophony. We want to abandon our lives. But as he spoke, he felt the grip of despair tightening, bringing icy fingers up to his throat. With renewed urgency, Mia shouted, Jake. What do we do? Suddenly, an idea flickered through Jake's mind, those visions from earlier. If the symbols had once been their salvation, perhaps they could amplify their combined light through sheer force of will. We channel everything we have. Our hope, our fear, our anger. Focus. They clasped their hands tighter, feeling the heat of their collective energy begin to build. Jake's heart thrummed, racing against the tide of darkness. Together, he commanded, summoning every ounce of courage buried deep within. But the shadows roared, a deafening sound that rattled through the cave. Fools! You think this will stop us? You're merely feeding the void. But they would not relent. Breath by breath, their power surged, pushing against the encroaching darkness. The symbols shone brighter, colors gleaming vivaciously against the encroaching shadows. Yet as the light flared, something shifted. The shadows began to shimmer like a mirage, unraveling and twisting into something more sinister, an unholy form that spilled from the void, gazing hungrily at their vulnerability. From the depths emerged a creature far larger than what they had initially faced, an amalgamation of lost souls, its flesh a grotesque tapestry of despair. You shouldn't have come here, children, it hissed, its voice layered with every whisper of the damned. The creature moved closer, and its eyes settled sharply on Jake. You think you can resist me? In his chest, a deep, primal fear thumped. He could feel it clawing at his sanity. We won't give in, he yelled, but inside, uncertainty coiled, tightening. How could they fight something that thrived on drowning hopes? Suddenly, darkness billowed around them, almost suffocating. The walls trembled with echoes of laughter, and a cold breath surrounded them, as though the cavern itself was alive, mocking their futile attempt at illumination. This time it was Luke who faltered, what if we let it take us? We can save ourselves, no. Jake shouted, panic slicing through his voice. We fight or we die. But as the shadows lunged, clawing toward them with flailing tendrils, Jake's heart raced wildly. How much longer could they hold on? Then the shadows snapped like a whip, and reality splintered. Mia's scream pierced the night, fading into thin air. But the darkness swallowed Jake's cry, pulling him into its depths, drowning him in an inky void where whispers of nightmares danced just beyond reach. As he vanished into the abyss, the last thought swirling through his mind echoed mournfully a solitary question: what truly lay at the heart of this darkness? The void clung to Jake like icy fingers. There was nothing but darkness, but he could still feel the whispers swirling around him. They were his thoughts, his fears, and yet, they belonged to something larger, something malevolent. Each breath felt heavy as despair coiled tighter around his chest. But in the heart of that suffocating night, a spark ignited. The memory of Mia's laughter, the warmth of his family, surged through him, awakening courage buried beneath layers of dread. I won't give up, he murmured, gathering his strength. Suddenly, he felt a pull, a tether anchoring him between the dark and the light. It yanked him back, startling him with jolts of energy. The shadows shifted at the edge of his vision, as if acknowledging his defiance. What now? He wondered. Can I still fight? The whispers grew louder, echoing fragments of doubt. You cannot escape, you are one of us now, but Jake forced the fears aside. Gathering his willpower, he shouted, no. I am not lost. I am more than your plaything. The shadows recoiled, a hissing sound like steam escaping a kettle. For a brief moment, the oppressive weight lightened. Fight with me. Fight with us. He called out, reaching into the depths of the darkness where he felt the presence of his family. And there they were, Mia, Luke, Sarah. Trapped but alive. Their very essence shimmered like embers in the night. Their fear became his fuel, leveraging strength within him. He envisioned them as a united front against the encroaching shadows. Hold on. We can come together. We can break this. Jake. Mia echoed, her small voice piercing through the darkness. Help us. He saw their faces in his mind, determination entwined with terror. They were scared, but they were not defeated. With every ounce of courage he could summon, he thrust his will into the ether, channeling their love and hope directly into the shadows. We are not buying what you're selling. We refuse to become part of your fate. The response was immediate. The shadows lashed out, almost frantically, as if struck by an unseen force. Tentacles of darkness writhed, drawing back from their combined light. No! The echoes screamed, pulling away. Together! Jake shouted once more, pushing his hands forward with everything he had. Bright symbols exploded with light, illuminating the cave as his family joined him, each hand pressing against the pulsating designs. Colors exploded like fireworks, battling. The darkness quaked, whimpering under the barrage. You cannot resist, you will join us. It howled. But Jake's resolve only tightened. He felt the connection surge between him and the others, a bond forged in their love and shared struggle. We're stronger than our fears. The shadows grew chaotic, swirling as Jake's heart thudded loudly, catching the rhythm of the symbols. Each burst of energy surged from each family member, pooling in one bright pulse that felt alive. The darkness charged forward, screaming, but the united front stayed grounded. Now! Jake yelled. With one collective push, they released everything, their hope, their anger, their defiance into the symbols, and the shadows recoiled, twisting into themselves, disintegrating as light overwhelmed them. The cave trembled, collapsing in reaction to the onslaught of brightness unleashed. The shadows shattered like glass, particles of darkness swirling toward a distant void. And then, silence. Jake gasped, the oppressive grip of despair vanished. They stood, panting but illuminated in the fading light of the symbols. Together, they emerged from the shadows. Jake turned back to find the grotesque figure retreating, dissolving into the mist that hung around the cave. Did we do it? Mia asked, wide-eyed with disbelief, trembling yet victorious. Yes. Luke interjected, arms raised high in triumph. We fought it. Together. They hugged tightly, warmth flooding back as reality unfolded. A doorway flickered into focus at the rear of the chamber, pulsating gently as if beckoning them home. Let us go, Sarah said, her eyes shimmering with tears, grief and relief blending in the moment. Hand in hand, they stepped across the threshold, leaving behind echoes of despair and embracing the light. The cave whispered softly, the shadows banished as the door shut behind them, sealing away the darkness. Back in Pine Hollow, they emerged unscathed, standing beneath a canopy of stars. The night air was cool but clean, and the forest felt alive yet gentler now, as if it bore witness to their ordeal. What just happened? Mia whispered, glancing back as if expecting the shadows to follow. Maybe they are still lurking, Jake murmured, but we won. We pushed through. In that moment, the family basked under the magnificent expanse of the sky, together stronger than fear and shadows that once threatened to tear them apart. As dawn broke, they loaded their gear, exuding a newfound strength. Each heartbeat reverberating with lessons learned, a resolve to face life boldly, regardless of the challenges lurking within shadows and uncertainty. Just before driving away, Jake looked back at the trees, the symbols, and breathed in the forest air as a promise, a vow never again to waver to the dark. This was their moment. Now, as they sat together in the SUV, Jake turned to his family, a thrill of warmth coiling in his chest. They would carry this horror with them, forging it into resilience, a bond that would never fade. He smiled as they left Pine Hollow behind, knowing that strength was found not just by what they faced in the woods but as a family, wherever life led next and wherever there are hidden shadows, they would be ready. Don't wait even one more second. If you want to keep receiving exclusive stories like this, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Smash that like button now and feed the algorithm to help keep the stories coming. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this epic conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.